The tulip was different from any other known flower to Europe at this time. It had an intense petal color that no other plant had. And the tulip came to the Netherlands right at the time that the Netherlands became a trade empire. It wasn't under the control of Spain any longer, and its resources could be channeled to commerce and trade and the growth of its merchant shipping fleet. So during this time, tulips became a coveted luxury item, and many varieties followed. So by 1634, as a result of foreign demand, speculators entered the market, and this is where the bubble begins to grow. The contract price of bulbs continued to rise throughout 1636, and so did the price of common unbroken bulbs, so that any tulip bulb could fetch hundreds of guilders. In that year, the Dutch created a futures market where contracts to buy bulbs at the end of the season were bought and sold. Traders met in taverns, and buyers had to pay a 2.5% fee up to a maximum of 3 guilders per trade. The Dutch described tulip contract trading as wind trade because no bulbs were actually changing hands. By 1636, the tulip bulb became the 4th leading export product of the Netherlands. The price of tulips skyrocketed because of speculation in tulip futures among people who never saw the bulbs. In the winter of 1636 and 1637 was the height of the bubble, when some bulbs were reportedly changing hands 10 times a day, but no deliveries were ever made to fulfill any of these contracts. In February 1637, tulip bulb contract prices collapsed and the trade of bulbs ground to a halt. The collapse began when, for the first time, buyers apparently refused to show up at a routine bulb auction. Very quickly, the bubble burst, and it's as if people woke up from their mass hysteria. Well, I want to close off this episode with some consideration of what is the lure of mass delusions. What's a psychological explanation for why we see these events show up so much, not just in history, but continually in the modern era? Robert Bartholomew argues in his book that collective delusions have a powerful seductive lure that change in a chameleon-like fashion to confirm our deepest fears or realize our greatest desires. Most people in the modern world can laugh at witch hunts or belief in the supernatural, but polls suggest that many of these same people likely believe in the reality of flying saucers or ghosts or psychic phenomena. Circumstances regarding people reporting on the New Jersey Devil or UFOs are almost identical to the London earthquake panic of 1761. Modern-day fears of satanic cults resemble the persecution of various deviants and ethnic groups during medieval European witch hunts. And the tulip bubble, you can argue, has a lot of similarities to the housing bubble only 10 years earlier. So this is one event where I don't like the cliche, history repeats itself, but history rhymes. Of mass hysteria, you can see history rhyming. Well, that's all for this episode. Bill, thank you for the question. And if any of you have a question for me about history, you're always free to contact me. And if you want to absolutely guarantee that I will answer it, you're more than welcome to join the Knowlton's Rangers, and I'll explain what that is in a second. All right, well, that was the episode for today. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it. First of all, I'd like to thank the Knowlton's Rangers, and especially our spy masters, Baron Fraser, Carl from Norway, Chris from Maine, Moondoggy from Ohio, and Rick Knowlton, and I'll explain what that means in a second. If you want to support the show and help me keep producing this content, there are 4 easy ways for you to do it. 1. Subscribe to the show and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. If you want to do that, you can go to historyunplugpodcast.com and there you'll find instructions. 2. Join our Facebook group, which you can find if you just search for History Unplugged. And please like and share posts that I put up about new episodes. 3. Submit a question to me so that I can answer it on air. You can email me at info@historyonthenet.com or leave a voicemail. And again, go to historyunpluggedpodcast.com and you'll find instructions. Lastly, and I think this one is the best, is to become one of the Knowlton's Rangers. The Knowlton's Rangers were an elite reconnaissance and espionage detachment of the Continental Army in the Revolutionary War, but it's also the name of the History Unplugged membership program. Learn how to join by going to patreon.com/unplugged. So here's what you get if you become one of the Knowlton's Rangers. If you join at the level of Scout, you can get early access to new podcast episodes, along with enjoying absolutely every single episode of the History Unplugged podcast ad-free. All 270 and counting episodes. If you join at the level of Intelligence Officer, you can also get access to premium episodes, like a multi-part series on the life of Audie Murphy, the most decorated combat soldier in World War II, or the 10-part series Ottoman Lives, a series that looks at the cast of characters that made up the Ottoman Empire, such as the Sultan, the eunuch, the harem servant girl, and the soldier. And finally, if you join at the level of Spy Master, you get all the same stuff as the scouts and intelligence officers, but you also get a shout-out to you and or your business at the end of each episode, a 3-pack of hardcover history books, plus you will be put at the very front of the line for me to answer your question about history, and I can guarantee I will dedicate an episode that's about an hour long or so to your question. Sign up at patreon.com/unplugged. Again, that's patreon.com/unplugged. Anyway, those are the ways you can help out the show. Thank you so much for your support. Thanks for listening to the History Unplugged podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show to get your daily dose of all things history related, from ancient Greece to the Cold War. We'll see you next time at the History Unplugged podcast.